So, Confucianism and Taoism. So, Confucianism is a major world religion that started in ancient China, and not many people practice it today because in the early 20th century, when communist China um, took over, they made the entire practice of religion illegal in the country. I mentioned that the other day when I was talking about Buddhism. So today, Confucianism is mostly a dead religion. You don't really see many people practicing it today. Nonetheless, the it's very it had produced a long tradition of literature in ancient China centered around Confucius and his teachings. This is for there's two of you in here who are taking me for ethics as well. This whole book, the Confucius's Analects, it, even more so than Buddhism, I would say, is more so a system of ethics than it is like a message on divinity. Confucius, Confucius wanted to teach everybody, how do you live a good life? How do you live a harmonious life living in the state? And remember that ancient China, I don't know if you guys had World Civ, ancient China was ruled by emperors. And you had people way up on the top, and you mostly had peasants. There wasn't a lot of people in between in ancient China. Um, the whole system in ancient China was kind of system of government was kind of founded around what was called the rice economy, like the production of rice as a staple crop in ancient China was what most peasants did. Most peasants had rice farms and things like that. But the more rich people, a lot of the rich people would learn these lessons from Confucianism, and they kind of built their whole system of thought around it. The religion of Confucianism started during a period of time called the Great Warring States period. The Great Warring States period. So there was a time in ancient China where different where China was in a state of civil war with each other, and it was such a long period of time where they were fighting wars that they almost started feeling a sense of despair. Like, is this what all life has to offer? Is war and death and destruction? Like, surely we can do better than this. And this is when the Confucius, um, a, a man who displayed exceptional wisdom, started his teachings. He started his teachings, and people would write down what he said in his teachings, and his teachings became so popular that it pretty much became a religion as a result. So over the course of thousands of years after Confucius passed away, his wisdom was taught in China, especially in the schools. China kind of organized their whole way of thought and life around Confucianism. Whenever you would go to college in ancient China, what you would mostly do would be memorize um, the teachings of Confucius. You would memorize the teachings of Confucius's immediate successors, you would spend a whole sort of lifetime almost immersing yourself within the Confucian faith. That is, the Chinese thought, especially that Confucius's wisdom was a wisdom that would last forever, and a true education would be fully immersing yourself within that wisdom. As far as his teachings, what did he teach? Is the big question. Confucius, we talked about this with Hinduism the other day. The idea in Hinduism is that you should know your role. Right? If you're born into a caste system in Hinduism, that's the social class that you're going to be born into, and you can never get out of that. Ancient China worked very similarly than that as that. I don't know if I would go as far as to call them a caste system like in India, but it's very close. Um, Especially within Confucian thought, Confucius kind of taught everybody to accept your place in society, whatever your place is. Do give it your all. Like if you're a rice farmer, be the best darn rice farmer you can be. If you're a college professor, be the best college professor you can be. If I'm the emperor or a governor of a region or something like that, be the best at that you can be. So he really taught people to know your place, know your role, excel in your role. Don't crave other roles or anything like that. You're you're in that role for a reason. But not only just your role economically, but also your role in family. Confucius really taught things like family values. If I'm a father, I have responsibilities. I am a father to a pug and two cats, right? But if I'm a father, I have to be the best darn father I can be. I have responsibilities to my children. If I'm a son, I have responsibilities to take care of my mother and father when they get old. They really emphasized the importance of family and fully embracing your role within families. If like whatever your role may be, it's a very much a religion focused on order and structure, and that's one reason why that I would think that it lasted so long. Whenever you think of ancient China was the most powerful country in the world for its whole existence, really. Um, Even when Rome was at its height, I still don't think they could have took ancient China. The thing with ancient China, though, is it was very insular. Like they never really interacted with the outside world too much. If you look at the geography, it's really hard to get to China from Europe. So most of the time, the China didn't really interact with these other countries much. So they sort of built this whole system of thought around Confucianism, and it was very much a very stable country for thousands of years, all the way up until the 20th century when the Chinese government was first China was overthrown by Britain. The British famously are some of the world's greatest drug lords. When Europe and China first started to interact, what did England do? they decided to get the Chinese hooked on drugs. It's called the Opium Wars. They got them all hooked on opium. And even though the Britain's a small island and China is very powerful, there was a big technology difference between them. The British had the strong navy and weapon rifles and things like that. In the 1800s, the Chinese were still fighting with swords. Well, you can just figure how that turned out. So, for the sort of downfall of ancient China started there, and then the true downfall happened when the government was overthrown and replaced by the government that they have there today. Which today, the government over there is known for its awful human rights violations, between not letting people practice religion to doing things like telling people how many kids they can have. You can only have like one or two kids in China. It's against the law to have any more. If you get pregnant and have another one, they make you abort the child. The government makes you abort the child. Um, I don't have anything nice to say about the current Chinese government, so I'll stop at that one. Um, but that is exactly what Confucianism was about order and structure. Kind of look at some passages from it. Um, Again, this is whenever you read this kind of stuff, the way the Norton Anthology gives it to you, it's kind of like in little snippets. And whenever I teach this, I like to kind of present it in that way. Think about it like it's some little wisdom nuggets. Like these are some like a lot of these things that Confucius say would make for like a good Facebook status or like a good magnet to put on your refrigerator or something. Like lots of them. It's kind of hard to tell the whole structure of the analects because of the way the book presents it. The book mostly presents it in these like little wisdom nuggets. And it does it in a way to kind of show you what Confucianism is all about: family, order, structure. Um, I kind of starred a few of my favorite little wisdom nuggets in it. Let's see. If you guys have I'm using the current edition of the book here. If you look at page 1306, I'll talk about some of my favorite ones. Maybe a couple of you guys can share one of your favorites if I don't mention it. Just to kind of talk about some of the ones that I starred. 2.7. ZU asked about filial piety. Master said, nowadays, people think they are dutiful sons when they feed their parents. Yet they also feed their dogs and horses. Unless there is respect, what is the difference? That's a pretty powerful little thought right there. Like think about how we as Americans treat our elderly today. Let's say you do something like throw your parent in a nursing home or something and barely ever go visit them. Sure, you're taking care of your parents' basic needs, but are you truly doing your responsibility as a kid if you never visit them? If you don't show them that type of respect. So he's kind of suggesting there it's more than just taking care of their needs to be a good child. You have to also show them honor and respect and reverence. A lot of these East Asian cultures very high on respecting your elders and the elderly. I think that's a lesson that we could all learn in the Western world more. Um, the next one I had starred was 8.13 on the next page. It says, "The master said, uphold the faith, love learning, defend the good way with your life. Enter not a country that is unstable, dwell not in a country that is in turmoil. Shine in a world that follows the way, hide when the world loses the way. In a country where the way prevails, it is shameful to remain poor and obscure. In a country which has lost the way, it is shameful to become rich and honored." The way is kind of what I was insinuating at before. That the way is being respectful, honoring your role within society. He's pretty much saying there that if a country loses its way, it loses sight as far as what's important, if you succeed in such a country, maybe that says something about you. Um, if a country is doing well and has the honor and values and things like that, if you don't succeed in a country like that, maybe the problem is you. So it's not only a system of ethics, but he's also kind of suggesting what makes for a system of good government, things like that. Um, let's see. I like the 12.2 as well, a couple more pages up. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it right. Ron Jung asked about humanity. The master said, when abroad, behave as if in front of an important guest. Lead the people as if performing a great ceremony. What you do not wish for yourself, do not impose upon others. Let no resentment enter public affairs. Let no resentment enter private affairs. Ran Jung said, I may not be clever, but with your permission, I shall endeavor to do as you have said. Um, that I love that one because Confucius gives the golden rule there. What you do not wish for yourself, do not impose upon others. Think about how that idea spread across every culture in the world, really. It's in the Bhagavad Gita, it's in the Bible. All these different cultures didn't even interact with each other. But a lot of them all came to that same idea, that same conclusion. Do not do unto others as you would not have done to yourself. It's called the golden rule. Yeah, those are the three little nuggets of wisdom that I highlighted. And hopefully that kind of showed you exactly what I was illustrating. Confucianism is a religion based on piety, filial piety, duty to your country, duty to your family, respect to people who are older than you, respect to tradition. This became a popular religion because ancient China became such a country grounded in its traditions. And this wisdom was taught over the course of centuries and millennia, even. And even though this as a faith isn't really practiced much today, nonetheless, his words are still here guiding us today. I've blabbed enough. What did you guys think of this? Um, what do you think of just the idea of any thoughts? Just the idea of Confucianism in general. Um, how was the reading experience? Reading these little nuggets of wisdom. Maybe one of you guys have a favorite little nugget of wisdom from it that you want to mention. Um, anything surprising maybe you didn't know about it before that I just said, or questions about anything that I just said?
It reminds me more of like an ethical like value in a way. Like I don't think it's more of a religious text. It's more of like a just how to be morally um, just and stuff. But my favorite one is 620, where it says to know something is not as good as loving it. To love something is not as good as rejoicing in it. So I like that one.
Which one was that?
620.
Six. What about that one stood out to you, Emily?
I just thought it was interesting because when you like know and like something, it's not like you're just it's just there. But when you love it, like you actually have a passion for it, and then you can even go further into like telling people about it, which is like rejoicing it and stuff.
Good. Yeah, I think I agree with you. It is very much a system of ethics. Um, it's kind of like reading. I mean, in some ways, it's like what if the Greeks would have founded a religion on Aristotle or something? Uh,
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
yeah, it's a similar thing. It, his wisdom was accepted as being such a universal truth, I guess you could say, that it became a religion of sorts. Um, I don't know if it's as conclusive in talking about the afterlife and things like that, like Buddhism or Hinduism or even the Western faiths are. Um, it's mostly a system founded on how you can make the most of your life as you have now.
Yeah, it's just like it's kind of just like a code of conduct basically.
Some of the rest of you guys think about it. Um, any nuggets that any of the rest of you want to share, or any thoughts about it in general?
I thought it was kind of interesting. I'm not religious anymore, but I used to be. Um, a lot of like the morals that are in the Bible, it kind of seemed to mirror this as well. Like, be a good parent, respect your elders, don't be resentful, don't hate other people. So it was interesting to see how they're similar.
Yeah, the golden rule, as I mentioned a second ago.
Yeah,
I would even make the case there, Lucy, that it's even more so.
I thought so too in some parts.
Yeah, we can certainly say that the respect your elders and things like that. They
Mm-hmm.
definitely put more weight on that.
Yeah, for sure.
There's something to be learned. There's something to be learned there. Again, like I used the example of a nursing home a minute ago. Just kind of think about um, how the elderly are often forgotten or not treated with enough reverence and respect today. Um, maybe, of course, you can always make the case respect is earned. Confucius wouldn't say that. He would think that you owe them or your respect just because they're in that situation. But I think there's something to be learned about it that we should follow more in that sort of example. Oh, this, if you guys ever get curious about exploring more of it, you can pick up a copy of Confucius's Analects. It's usually I have a copy. It's a pretty cheap book to buy. But if you're curious about sort of getting a picture of the whole thing, there is a structure to it, but you don't get it from reading this in the book. But it's a nice sort of text to read and learn about. Again, I just like with Buddhism, I'm giving you a very basic sketch of the faith too. It got a lot more complicated in the way that I presented it over the course of centuries. Lao Tzu introduced the Taoist faith as well, the Taoist faith. It's usually pronounced Taoism. You guys have ever seen the yin yang symbol? The yin yang symbol. Let's see if I can share my screen. I'll show you. Yeah, this is the yin yang symbol. Right? It's this idea of light and darkness. In the light, you can't have a world with. It's kind of a dualist idea. You can't have one without the other. Even in the light, there's a little bit of darkness. Even in the darkness, there's a little bit of light. That's kind of what the yin yang symbol suggests. It's really hard to teach Taoism just because the more and more you kind of think about it, the more and more it kind of just makes your mind go up in smoke. Unlike Confucianism, where we can kind of point an answer, like I said, the warring state period, they ask themselves, is this all life has to offer? What can we do to live a good life? Lao Tzu wrote this text called the Tao Te Ching. And in the Tao Te Ching, he talked about this idea called the way. Follow the way. Confucius used that word too, but Tao, in the Tao, it really hits hard on that. Follow the way. What is the way? What would we even define that as? If you guys have ever watched the Star Wars, the idea of the Force in Star Wars, right? The Force is the guiding metaphysical structure of the universe in Star Wars. You have people who are on the light side of the Force. You have people who are on the dark side of the Force. It takes both sides of the Force to balance out with each other. If you've ever watched Star Wars, George Lucas got that idea from Taoism. He pretty much lifted it straight out of this religion. The Force in Star Wars is a way that you can kind of think about the way. The way is the basic foundational structure of the universe, the metaphysical structure. We have to kind of submit ourselves to the way, follow the way. And with that illustration I just showed you, it's this idea that it's a universe of contradictions in many ways. Even in the light, there's darkness. Even in the darkness, there's light. It's a whole system founded on contradictions. And that's why it's really hard to define it. It suggests that the whole religion kind of suggests the universe isn't something that you can just put a clear definition on. It is a confusing life. It is a confusing universe. It's a universe of paradoxes where things don't always make sense. The key to happiness is to kind of just submit yourself to that, resign yourself to the way. If you can kind of, if you can kind of sense that oftentimes there's not clear cut answers to any of this, you'll probably live a more fulfilling life. If you look, just to take a look at page 1317, the first passage, that's kind of a way in here. Not to use a pun. He says the way that can be spoken of is not the constant way. The name that can be named is not the constant name. The nameless was the beginning of heaven and earth. The named was the mother of the myriad creatures. Hence, always rid yourself of desires in order to observe its secrets. But always allow yourself to have desires in order to observe its manifestations. These two are the same but diverge in nature as they issue forth. Being the same, they are called mysteries. Mystery upon mystery. The gateway of the manifold secrets. So even there, that's a passage that it's grounded in paradox. If you think about it too hard, it'll fry your brain. I always like to joke that it would be fun to read this if you were like smoking marijuana or something. Maybe then it would make more sense. He kind of even says there, always rid yourself of desires in order to observe its secrets. Okay, so it's starting to sound like Buddhism, right? Let's get rid of our desires. Let's get rid of our cravings. But then he says, but always allow yourself to have desires in order to observe its manifestations. So which is it? Which is it, Lao Tzu? Should we have desires? Should we not have desires? He says, rid yourselves of desires, but also have desires. Okay, what do I do with that? What do I do with that, Lao Tzu? That's the whole point, is that these things aren't so clear cut. We have to kind of resign ourselves to this very confusing universe that we're in. If we can kind of see that it's a confusing universe, that it's a contradictory universe, the sooner we realize that, the better off we'll be. My absolute favorite passage from this is passage 19. Passage 19. There's a lot of truth to this one. Exterminate the sage, discard the wise, and the people will benefit 100-fold. Exterminate benevolence, discard rectitude, and the people will again be filial. Exterminate ingenuity, discard profit, and there will be no more thieves and bandits. These three, being false adornments, are not enough, and people must have something to which they can attach themselves. Exhibit the unadorned and embrace the uncarved block. Have little thought of self and as few desires as possible. That's really profound. It's kind of suggesting these concepts that we come up with for thinking about things like good and evil and all these are just concepts. He's suggesting if we throw out the concepts um, things would be radically different. If we get rid of the concept of benevolence, um, people, as he says, people will again be filial. If we get rid of the idea of money and profit, like if we didn't have the concept of making a profit, would people steal anything then? Would people steal anything in order to try to get ahead? No. If we didn't have that concept of profit, there wouldn't be thieves. Um, we didn't have money, would we have thieves? No. Um, it's really it's a really interesting idea, I think. Um, talking about the value of money as a whole thing. We don't have but 10 minutes or so left. I'll read another one and then I'll see what you guys have to say. I like the next one too. Exterminate learning, and there will no longer be worries. Between yea and nay, how much difference is there? Between how great good and evil, how great is the distance? What others fear, one must also fear, and wax without having reached the limit. The multitude are joyous, as if partaking of the Tao Lo offering, going up to a terrace in spring. I alone am inactive and reveal no signs. Like a baby that has not yet learned to smile, listless as though with no home to go back to, the multitude all have more than enough. I alone seem to be in want. My mind is that of a fool, how blank. Vulgar people are clear. I alone am drowsy. Vulgar people are alert. I alone am muddled. Calm like the sea, like a high wind that never ceases. The multitude all have a purpose. I alone am foolish and uncouth. I alone am different from others, a value being fed by the mother. And he's saying here, right? Like I'm a sage. I should be the wise one. I'm really the idiotic one. Look at all the common, they calls them the vulgar people. Look at the vulgar people. They at least know what they want to do. They're better off than me. So, again, he's supposed to be wise, but he's saying, no, I'm not wise. They are. It's a really confusing text to read. The whole thing's just kind of grounded in life as a contradiction. You can't make much sense of it. Submit yourself to the way, follow the way, and that's the answer. The way isn't necessarily like Confucius said. The way for Confucius was following your path. The way here is embrace the universe and all of its chaos, pretty much. Yeah, I'm sure that I did that I probably could have explained this more eloquently, but it's a religion that I don't think anybody could explain eloquently because it's so paradoxical. Um, any thoughts on this one? Um, anything that stood out to you? Was were the rest of you guys as confused about it as how I'm presenting it to be confusing? I'll ask you that.
To me, it was like reading the Bible, really. Like some passages are harder to understand than others. It was just like all mixed around.
Right? Yeah, at least even with something like the Bible, right? It gives clear teachings, I guess you could say. Nothing's really clear in this. um, as far as the concepts. Yeah, and there's more people today that practice Taoism than Confucianism. I think it's still relatively popular in certain places in East Asia, as well as I think there's some people who practice it in Japan now too. But it's still a religion. There's still some followers of it. It's one of the major world religions even today. And again, the best way to explain it, if you've watched Star Wars, think of the Force. George Lucas stole that idea from this. So that sort of concludes our sneak peek into other ancient cultures. Um, these things are really the only things that I feel like I can speak with any authority on, because I'm not really a scholar of ancient China or ancient India. I know a little bit more about India than China. Um, Eventually, it kind of gets to the point with a course like this where if I tried to act like I know what I was talking about, that I would almost be appropriating the culture. Um, if I, I think that it takes to truly learn that stuff. It takes learning it from an authority on that subject. I'm frankly not one. But hopefully, at least my goal with this is hopefully at least I gave you a sneak peek into those cultures and their values, the way they saw life through a basic introduction to the faiths that undergird those cultures. So that's kind of my hope for this brief unit. Um, a week is certainly not enough time to do these cultures justice, but that's my limit as a teacher. I can try to talk about some of the other text within those cultures is outside my wheelhouse. Eventually, even as a teacher, you got to know your limit, and that's mine. Okay? Well, I will do what I just said. I will sometime today. I'll upload another quiz to kind of test your knowledge of this. And remember, next week, neither on Monday or Wednesday, we will not have a session. Monday, what I had planned was talk about essay stuff. I did a little bit of that today already. Wednesday, I'm having you look at the Aeneid, book two of the Aeneid, and I'll have you. I'll probably just have you guys take a little short quiz on it too, rather than doing a log. We'll start logs again after next week, after the paper's done. Once we get back to class the following week, you will have looked at book four of the Aeneid then, and I'll kind of talk about book two and book four together that day. So, yeah, I hate that we won't be able to meet next week. I like you guys as a class. Yeah, I think you're a good group. Um, but we'll pick it back up. In the meantime, while I'm gone, you'll be able to work on your papers at least. All right, so feel good? I hope so. All right,
Yes, to me.
guys. Well, signing off. I'll see you all week after next.
You guys have a good afternoon.
See you later.